Mrs. Kane, if I owned a newspaper and I didn't like the way somebody was doing things, some politicians say, I'd fight him with everything I had. Only I wouldn't show him in a convict suit with stripes so his children could see the picture in the paper or his mother.
You're a cheap, crooked grafter.
We're talking now about what you are. Mrs. Kane, I'm fighting for my life. Not just my political life, my life.
Charlie said hush you with
That's what I said. Here's the chance I'm willing to give him. More of a chance than he'd give me. Unless Mr. Kane makes up his mind by tomorrow that he's so sick he has to go away for a year or two. Monday morning, every paper in the state except his will carry the story I'm going to give him.
What story?
Story about him and Miss Alexander, Mrs. Kane.
There isn't any story.
Shut up!
Mr. Kane.
You got evidence that looked bad in the headlines. Do you want me to give you the evidence, Mr. Kane? Well, Mr. Kane withdrew without having to get the story published. Not that I care about him, but I'd be better off.
What about...
So would you, Mrs. Kane.
What about me? Charlie said my name would be dragged through the mud. But everywhere I went from now on...
There seems to be only one decision you can make, Charles. I say it had been made for you.
Can't tell me the voters of this state.
I'm not interested in the voters of this state right now. I'm interested in our son.
Charlie, if they publish the story,
They won't. Good night, Mr. Geddes. Are you coming, Charles?
No. I'm staying here. I can fight this all alone.
Charles, if you don't listen to reason, it may be too late.
Too late. For what? For you and this public thief to take the love of the people of this state away from me?
Charlie, you got other things to think about. Your little boy. You don't want him to read about you in the paper.
There's only one person in the world to decide what I'm going to do, and that's me.
You decided what you were going to do, Charles, some time ago.
You're making a bigger fool of yourself than I thought you would, Mr. Kane.
I've got nothing to talk to you about.
You're licked. Why don't you...
Get out. If you want to see me, have the warden write me a letter.
If anybody else would say what's going to happen to you, it'd be a lesson to you. Only you're going to need more than one lesson. You're going to get more than one lesson.
Don't worry about me, Geddes. Don't worry about me! I'm Charles Foster Kane! I'm no cheap, crooked politician trying to save himself from the consequences of his crimes! Geddes! I'm going to send you to Sing Sing! Sing Sing, Geddes! Sing Sing!
Your car, Mrs. King?
Yes, thank you. Good night.
With a million majority already against him, and the church count is still to be heard from, I'm afraid we got no choice.
This one?
That one.
Well, I began. Is there anything...
No, thanks, Mr. Bernstein. Better go home and get some sleep.
You too.
Besides, Mr. Kane.
Hello, Jedediah.
I'm drunk.
Well, if you got drunk to talk to me about Miss Alexander, don't bother. I'm not interested. I've set back the sacred cause to perform. Is that it? All right. That's the way they want it. The people have made that choice. It's obvious the people prefer Jim Geddes to me.
You talk about the people as though you own them. So they belong to you. Good. As long as I can remember, you talked about giving the people their rights. As if you could make them a present of liberty. As a reward for services rendered.
Jed.
Remember the working man?
I'll get drunk too, Jedediah. It'll do any good.
That won't do any good. Besides, you never get drunk. You used to write an awful lot about the working man.
Oh, go on
He's turning
home.
into something called organized labor. You're not going to like that one little bit when you find out it means that your working man expects something as his right, not as your gift, Charlie. When your precious underprivileged really get together, oh, boy. That's going to add up to something bigger than your privilege, and I don't know what you'll do. Sail away to a desert island, probably, and lord it over the monkeys.
I wouldn't worry about it too much, Jed. There'll probably be a few of them there to let me know when I do something wrong.
You may not always be so lucky.
You're not very drunk.
Drunk, what do you care? You don't care about anything except you. You just want to persuade people that you love them so much that they ought to love you back. Only you want love on your own terms. It's something to be played your way according to your rules. Charlie, I want you to let me work on the Chicago paper.
What?
Well, you said yourself you were looking for someone to do dramatic criticism. I am drunk. I want to go to Chicago. You're too valuable here. Well, Charlie, there's nothing left for me to do but ask you to...
All right, you can go to Chicago.
Thank you.
Guess I better try to get drunk anyway. I warn you, Jedediah, you're not going to like it in Chicago. The wind comes howling in off the lake, and gosh only knows if they ever heard of Lobster Newburgh.
Will Saturday after next be all right?
Anytime you say.
Thank you.
Toast, Jedediah, to love on my terms. Those are the only terms anybody ever knows. His own.
It's just like scene after scene after scene after scene. I mean, you can't stop looking at it. It's just bam, bam, bam. In this way, it reminds me of almost nothing else.
We're going to be a great opera star. Are you going to sing at the Metropolitan, Mrs. Kane? We certainly are.
Charlie said if I didn't, he'd build me an opera house.
That won't be necessary.
Oh, yeah. Incredible. He tries to make her something she's not, you know, with money. Amazing film. So yeah, I'm just sitting here watching Citizen Kane, and I don't know if you've seen it. I've seen it several times. But I thought this afternoon, just as I've been wrestling with questions of identity and privilege, trying to establish something, this was sort of hysterical, timing-wise. It's such an epic production. There's so many sweet shots. I'd forgotten about when he goes to talk to the first wife, and the reporter is in the booth and the camera is in the booth, so it's all black foreground basically, and there's a slit where the butler is standing outside the booth and he's on the phone talking to, and the widow's in the distance. That shot is just amazing. When I was looking at it this time, I realized, something like this much of the screen, is black, basically.
How about the music notice? You got that in?
Oh, yes, that's already made up. Mr. Merwin wrote a swell review.
Enthusiastic?
Yes, sir. Naturally.
Mr. Bernstein?
Mr. Kane.
Mr. Kane.
Hello, Mr.
Hello, Mr. Kane. This is a surprise.
Done exactly. Mr. Donovan.
Just two spreads of pictures.
It's fine. The music notice on the front page?
Yes, Mr. But there's still one notice to come. The dramatic.
Dramatic notice?
Leland.
Mr. Bernstein, that's Mr. Leland, isn't it?
Yes, Mr. Kane. We're waiting for it.
Where is he?
Right in there, Mr. Kane.
Great film. I mean, it's just obvious it's a great film, and everybody knows it's a great film, but I haven't seen it in a long time, and when you don't see it for a long time, you get over a lot of that stuff where whenever someone asks me if I want to watch, I'm like, what am I going to be sitting for 3 hours? And I did this the other day with Magnolia, the P.T. Anderson film, which is, again, another 3-hour film that I've only maybe sat all the way.
Mr. Kane, they haven't spoken together for years. You don't suppose? Nothing to suppose. Excuse me. You haven't been drinking before, Mr. King.
Never. I would have heard. What's it say there? The notice. What's he written?
There's Susan Alexander, a pretty but hopelessly incompetent amateur. Last night, opened the new Chicago Opera House in a performance of... I still can't pronounce that name, Mr. Kane. Her singing happily is no concern of this department. Of her acting, it is absolutely impossible to...
Go on. Go on. Overacting it is absolutely impossible to say anything except that in the opinion of this reviewer, it represents a new low. Have you got that, Mr. Bernstein, in the opinion of this reviewer?
I didn't see that.
It isn't here, Mr. Bernstein. I'm dictating.
Well, Mr. Kane,
Get me a typewriter. I'm going to finish Mr. Leland's notice. Oh, Bernstein. Oh. Hello, Mr. Leland. Where's my notice, Bernstein? I've got to finish my notice.
Mr. Kane is finishing it for you.
Charlie?
Charlie?
Charlie, out there. fixing it up. I knew I'd never get that through.
Mr. Kane is finishing your review just the way you started it. He's writing a bad notice, like you wanted it to be. I guess that'll show you.
Hello, Jedediah.
Hello, Charlie.
I didn't know we were speaking. Sure we're speaking, Jedediah. You're fired.
Everybody knows that story, Mr. Leland, but why did he do it? How could a man write a notice like that?
You just don't know
Everybody-
Charlie. He thought that by finishing that notice, he could show me he was an honest man. He was always trying to prove something. That whole thing about Susie being an opera singer.
I was trying to prove something.
Amazing. But I've been
You
thinking
know
more
what
and more about
the
how
reason was the day before the election.
Candidate Kane.
we should
found
be
his
discussing
love nest with
Trump as a Kane,
singer.
Citizen Kane metaphor. But we don't because of the lack of intellectualism. But when you look at this now, he's a playboy. He's hardly an intellect. He's an intellectual in the way that Batman, Bruce Wayne, is an intellectual. As far as we're talking about the modern era, you know. And so I was thinking about like Trump as
I guess maybe I'm not as hard to see through as I think.
Kane.
Well, I never even answered his letter. Maybe I should have. Guess he was pretty lonely down there in that Coliseum all those years. He hadn't finished it when she left him. He never finished it. He never finished anything. Except my notice. Of course, he built a joint for her.
That must have been love.
I don't know. He was disappointed in the world, so he built one of his own, an absolute monarchy. Something bigger than an opera house, anyway. Nerd!
Something bigger than an opera house.
Young fella, there is one thing you can do for me.
Sure.
Stop at the cigar store on your way out, will you? And get me a couple of good cigars.
Be glad to.
Thank you. One is enough. You know, when I was a young man, there used to be an impression around that nurses were pretty. Well, it was no truer then than it is today.
I'll take your arms.
All right. You can forget about those cigars, will you? And have them wrap them up to look like toothpaste or something, or they'll stop them at the desk. You know that young doctor I was telling you about? Well, he's got an idea. He wants to keep me alive.
Leland. What a character Leland is. When he first comes to talk to him, and he's talking about death, it's incredible. The casual, offhanded way is so specific to the writer, or the artist, or the, dramatist.
I'd rather you just talked. Anything that comes into your mind. About yourself,
Poetry,
Mr.
really,
Kane.
on the page.
A lot of what comes into my mind about myself and Mr. Charlie Kane. You know, maybe I should never stop with Charlie that first time I met him. I did an awful lot of singing after that. To start with, I sang for teachers. $100 an hour. Teachers got that.
What did you get?
I didn't get a thing. Just a music lesson, that's all there was in it.
He married you, didn't he?
I didn't mention anything about marriage till after it was all over and got the papers about us. He lost the election and divorced him. He was really interested in my voice. What do you suppose he built that opera house for? I didn't want it. I didn't want to sing. It was his idea. Everything was his idea. Except my leaving him.
Il mio cor, don't forget that Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Now, don't get nervous, don't get nervous. Please, let's come back. Da capo, eh? Please look at me, Mrs. Kane, darling. Now, get the boys out of the floor. Play the tone right in the mask. Forward, forward. The eyes. Go ahead. Diaphragm. Now.
God, man.
People can sing. Impossible.
It's not your job to give Mrs. Kane your opinion of her talents. You're supposed to train her voice, Signor Battisti.
But Mr.
Nothing
Kane.
more. Please sit down and continue the lesson.
But Mr. Kane,
Please.
I will be the laughing stock of the musical world. People will think that
People will think. You're concerned with what people will think, but perhaps I can enlighten you, Signor Battisti, on something of an authority on what people will think. The newspapers, for example. I run several newspapers with my own sentences. All right, Father. Signor Battisti's going to listen to reason not to, Signor.
How can I persuade
You can't. It's all right, darling. Go ahead. I thought you'd see it my way.
Imagine directing that. Imagine directing that. Like, how do you direct something like that? Is what that is just crazy. Like, what's required there is so much stuff has to happen there. She has to be able to sing off key. It's amazing. It's amazing, amazing film. And these shots of him in the box, just close up on his eyes, watching her, or something else, man. Just. So much tension from the performance. But all because of just him. Just Orson Welles' character. Kane's rigidity. Everybody. Every human. Everyone and everybody works for him. And that face. And Leland shredding his. The release of tension comes in the form of these. The girls giggling in the neighboring box. Leland shredding the intellectual dramaturg. And the fellas in the box Those three elements interspersed against his tension. And then this shot, this crane shot. Or booth, I guess. That could be studio. And he starts the encore. And make sure there's flowers for her. What is that? Nice standing ovation. We're the few in the building, right? Alone.
Stop telling me he's your friend. Friend don't write that kind of review. All these other papers telling me I could expect that. But for the Inquirer to run a thing like that, spoiling my whole debut. Come on.
I'll get it.
Friends. Not the kind of friends I know. But of course I'm not high class like you, and I never went to any swell school.
Will be enough, Susan.
Jed Leland?
He wanted me to make sure that you got this personally.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Now something from him?
Man.
As for you ought to have your head examined. Sending him a letter telling him he's fired with a $25,000 check in it. What kind of firing do you call that? You did send him a check for $25,000, didn't you?
Yes. I sent him a check for $25,000.
What's that?
Paper with the principles on it.
Declaration of principles.
What?
Hmm?
What is it?
Antique.
You're awful funny, aren't you? Well, I can tell you one thing you're not going to keep on being funny about, and that's my sin. I'm through. I never wanted to in the first place.
I never wanted to in the first
Continue with
place.
your singing, Susan. I don't propose to have myself made ridiculous.
You don't propose to have yourself made ridiculous. What about me? I'm the one that's got to do the singing. I'm the one that gets the raspberries. Why don't you let me alone?
My reasons satisfy me, Susan. You seem unable to understand them. Well, I'll tell them to you again. You will continue with your singing.
Dorothy Gore. Dorothy Gore as Susan. Alexander Kane. Oh, wow. Should have known this, but I didn't. And I think you might like to know it as well. That woman, Dorothy Comingore, who performs as his second wife, Susan Alexander Kane. We were talking about how difficult it would be to direct that, much less perform that. And this is 1941, so it's something like, 9 years before the same type of performance happens in a comedic picture, and in a highly different context. 11 years before Singing in the Rain, when you have that incredible performance by the actress's name escapes me right now, which is, I hate doing that, so I'm going to quickly pull it up. I think it's relevant in a way. It's that ability to play someone who's off key, or that's bad, that's done with subtlety rather than just real obviousness. Jean Hagen as Lena Lamont is 11 years later, has a similar task in a comedic context. But Dorothy Comingore here has to play this girl who is a puppet. And there are some interesting things about what happens to her. So if you have, this is her after the suicide attempt, basically. If you haven't seen the picture, you should see this.
All right. You won't have to fight him anymore. It's their loss.
Jigsaw puzzles.
Charlie, what time is it?
11:30.
New York?
Said, what time is it in New York?
11:30.
Night?
Bulldog's just gone to press.
Well, hooray for the bulldog.
Gee, 11:30. Shows are just getting up. People are going to nightclubs and restaurants. Of course, we're different because we live in a palace.
You always said you wanted to live in a palace.
Oh, a person could go crazy in this dump. Nobody to talk to, nobody to have any fun with.
Susan.
49,000 acres of nothing but scenery and statues. I'm lonesome.
Just yesterday, we've had no less than 50 of your friends at any one time. I think if you look carefully in the West Wing, Susan, you'll find about a dozen vacationers still in residence.
You make a joke out of everything. Charlie, I want to go to New York. I'm tired of being a hostess. I want to have fun. Please, Charlie. Charlie, please.
Our home is here, Susan. Don't care to visit New York.
Great device, the jigsaw puzzle, as a time. I mean, look at that shot, crazy shot. It just doesn't stop. That's the thing. You can't really.
What are you doing? Oh, one thing I never can understand, Susan. How do you know you haven't done it before?
Makes a whole lot more sense than collecting statues.
You may be right. I sometimes wonder. But you get into the habit.
Not a habit. I do it because I like it.
I thought we might have a picnic tomorrow, Susan.
Huh?
I thought we might have a picnic tomorrow. Invite everybody to spend the night at the end of it.
Fight everybody. Order everybody to meet and make them sleep in tents. Who wants to sleep in tents when they got a nice room of their own, with their own bath, where they know where everything is?
Thought we might have a picnic tomorrow, Susan.
That never did me anything I really care about.
The absurdity of the outing. And I think it's near San Simeon, too. I mean, it's all in his face. The Hearst family.
Oh, sure, you give me things, but that don't mean anything to you.
You're in a tent, darling. You want it home. I can hear you very well if you speak in a normal tone of voice.
What's the difference between giving me a bracelet or giving somebody else $100,000 for a statue you're going to keep crated up and never even look at? It's just money. It doesn't mean anything. You never really give me anything that belongs to you, that you care about.
Susan, I want you to stop this.
I'm not going to stop it.
Right now.
You never gave me anything in your whole life. You just tried to buy me into getting you something.
Susan! I do because I love you.
You don't love me. You want me to love you. Sure. I'm Charles Foster Kane. Whatever you want, just name it and it's yours. But you gotta love me. Don't tell me you're sorry.
I'm not sorry.
It's just crazy, dude. It's scene after scene after scene in this thing. And the thing is, we're ending up just by chance, since I just turned the live stream on when I tuned in, and we're catching, as a result of the process, really amazingly, we're catching the performance of Dorothy Comingore. I wish I knew how to pronounce her name properly, but...
Tell Arnold I'm ready, Marie. Tell him he can get the bag. Yes, madame.
Bags are packed and...
You've gone completely crazy. Should know that our guests, that everyone here will know about this. Packed your bag, you sent for the car.
They left you? Of course they'll hear. I'm not saying goodbye, except to you. But I never imagined people wouldn't know.
I won't let you go.
Goodbye, Charlie.
I don't love that choice of lighting, but I get it.
Susan. Please don't go. No. Please, Susan. From now on, everything will be exactly the way you want it to be. Not the way I think you want it, but your way. Mustn't go. You can't do this to me.
Wow.
I see. It's you that this is being done to. Not me at all. Not what it means to me. I can't do this to you. Oh, yes, I can. In case you haven't heard how I lost all my money. It was funny, believe me.
The last 10 years have been tough on a lot of people.
Oh, they haven't been tough on me. I just lost all my money. You've gone down to Xanadu.
Yeah, Monday with some of the boys from the office.
So
You
good.
also lost the whole place photographed, all that art stuff. We run a picture magazine, you know.
Yeah, I know. Well, if you're smart, you'll get in touch with Raymond. He's the butler. You'll learn a lot from him. He knows where all the bodies are buried.
You know, all the same, I feel kind of sorry for Mr. Kane.
Don't you think I do? Well, what do you know? It's morning already.
What a...
I'm telling the story of your life sometimes.
So, her pull away on the crane shot, the lights coming in, and that shot where I say, you know, while I'm watching it, I get why he's doing the high contrast, because it's super dark on one side of her face when she's walking out. And, I'm sure now that I know this, I'll end up looking up a lot of things, and maybe many of you already know this, but I did not know about Dorothy Comingore, Comingure, Comingore,
I've been working for him 11 years now.
and her story.
In charge of the whole place.
And
So I ought to know. Rose, yes? Well, like I tell you, the old
the
man
butler's biz now. I'm going to read this. Dorothy was discovered by Charles Chaplin while performing with the Carmel Little Theater in Monterey County. Oh, there's still that flashback. My bad. It's been a while since I've seen this, so forgive me. But this isn't about us watching it as much as it is sort of just appreciating whatever happened to be on during the live stream. And what I'm going to read to you is about her. Here he is checking boxes and suitcases. So he's 25 years old and he's playing Citizen Kane, destroying the room of his second wife who was divorced and walked out. And it's so physical, right? I'm just thinking now, at my age now, watching this, it seems so different. It does seem like a young guy.
Rosebud.
More. Rosebud. So the attachment to her and the mother is so much stronger. In that instance, it cuts through the passion of his rage. And then the mirror shot. Ah, it's just... Hall of Mirrors. He was 25 when he made this. It's just insane.
I see. And that's what you know about Rosebud?
Yeah. I heard him say it that other time, too. He just said, Rosebud. Then he dropped the glass ball and it broke on the floor. He didn't say anything after that, and I knew he was dead. He said all kinds of things that didn't mean anything.
Sentimental fellow, aren't you?
Yes and no.
Well, that isn't worth $1,000.
You can keep on asking questions if you want.
We're leaving tonight.
Soon as the two take the pictures. Allow yourself plenty of time. The train stops at the junction on 6th, but they don't like to wait. Not now. I can remember when they wait all day. It's Mr. Kane. Better get going.
Amazing film. Hey, you know what? Somebody should... That piece is now I'm changing the price of that in 2019. It just
How much
jumped.
do you think all this is worth, Mr. Thompson?
I'm doubling the price of that.
Anybody wants it?
Well, at least he brought on this stuff from America.
What's that? Another Venus. $25,000. That's a lot of money to pay for a dame without a head.
The banks are out of luck then, huh?
It's a lot of money to pay for a dame without a head.
He never threw anything away. Welcome home, Mr. Kane, from 467 employees of the New York Enquirer.
One stove from the estate of Mary Kane, New Salem, Colorado. Value, $2.
We're supposed to get everything, the junk as well as the art.
He sure liked to collect things, didn't he?
Anything and everything.
A regular thrill, huh?
Hey, look, a jigsaw puzzle.
We got a lot of those.
Burmese temple and 3 Spanish ceilings down the hall.
Yeah, all in crates.
One of a Scotch castle over there, but we haven't bothered to unwrap it yet.
I wonder, you put all this stuff together. Palaces, paintings, toys, and everything. What would it spell? Charles Foster Kane? Or Rosebud? How about it, Jerry?
What's Rosebud?
That's what he said when he died.
Did you ever find out what it means? No, I didn't. What did you find out about it, Jerry? Not much, really. We better get started.
What have you been doing all this time?
Playing with a jigsaw puzzle?
If you could have found out what that Rosebud meant, I bet that would have explained everything.
No, I don't think so. No. Mr. Kane was a man who got everything he wanted and then lost it. Maybe Rosebud was something he couldn't get or something he lost. Anyway, it wouldn't have explained anything. I don't think any word can explain a man's life. No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle. Missing piece. Well, come on, everybody. We'll miss the train.
The crane out, then the still shot out as they walk out, then a still shot of just stuff. And then the crane over the stuff. And the reward to us, the viewer. But not before. Peril. That we won't ever get that reward. It's funny looking at this right now, after having watched Storage Wars, that binge manner that I did just because I was for some reason needing to, I don't know what I was needing to see there.
Throw that junk.
Throw the junk in the fire. Hey, what's that you just threw in the fire? Close up, unaffected, in black and white. Excessive. The no trespassing enclosure is the act of a 25-year-old. Most of the principal actors in Citizen Kane are new to motion pictures. The Mercury Theater is proud to introduce them. Joseph Cotten.
What you nowadays call a stooge, huh?
Everything was his idea. Except my leaving him.
I've got his truck all packed.
Comminger is how you
Haven't
pronounce
packed
it.
for a week now.
And so we've been
Sometimes I
talking
think I
about
prefer
that
a rival
performance
of flesh
here
and blood.
because I learned some things about her, and I'm just going to read those. She was discovered by Charles Chaplin, She was discovered by Charles Chaplin while performing with the Carmel Little Theater in Monterey County. He was enchanted by her, and his praise won her a Hollywood contract. That contract was unaccountably dropped after just 3 months without even a screen test. At Warner Brothers, she was utilized purely for publicity stills and as a clothes model. She would have none of it. Having already acquired a reputation as a firebrand, she walked out on the studio, having been relegated to what amounted to nothing more than a crowd scene. She was determined to be appreciated for her acting ability, not to be wasted as an extra. Columbia signed her on. However, between 1938 and 1940, most of her roles, in which she was often billed as Linda Winters, still turned out to be uncredited bits and walk-ons. There were also westerns and Three Stooges comedy shorts, but certainly nothing of substance. Her turning point came courtesy of an introduction to Orson Welles at a party. Welles came to think of her as ideal casting for the part of brash, feather-brained would-be diva Susan Alexander Kane. Someone else has written this. A successful screen test followed, and then came the role that brought Dorothy Comminger at once fame and ruin. Soon after its release, the wrath of Citizen Hearst descended upon everyone associated with the picture. In particular, he never forgave Dorothy for playing a part so obviously and effectively modeled on his mistress. Dorothy Comminger was already well known for her leftist sympathies. Her father had been a high-profile unionist, and her first husband had died fighting Franco's fascists in the Spanish Civil War. The newspaper magnate had ample ammunition to orchestrate a nationwide smear campaign, using prominent columnists Hedda Hopper and Walter Winchell to branding her a subversive, a member of the Communist Party. Though devoid of substantiating evidence, the spurious allegation stuck. Dorothy had associations and friends in Hollywood, not to mention her husband, the screenwriter Richard Collins, who had been an active party member of the Hollywood chapter in the 1930s of the Communist Party we're talking about, who had communist affiliations or were party members. What a horrible time in America. She had also made enemies by following in her father's footsteps, canvassing for and supporting civil rights causes and union solidarity. Refusing to cooperate with the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, made her an unfriendly witness. Not only was she blacklisted in Hollywood, but her phone was tapped, her mail opened, and her home ransacked. Collins, by now Dorothy's ex, did not have the same moral fortitude. To escape blacklisting, Richard Collins recanted his previous testimony and fully cooperated with HUAC's inquisitors. Dorothy's career effectively ended in 1951, her acting swan song in films being a small part in an indifferent drama of teenage angst, The Big Night, 1951, 10 years after this performance we've just watched. Her personal life, meanwhile, continued to spiral out of control. She became an alcoholic in October of 1952. She was arrested by Vice Squad officers on a solicitation charge. Another likely frame-up as payback for her red affiliations. Having lost custody of her children, she agreed to have the charges against her dropped in exchange for being committed to the Camarillo is how they pronounce it out there, State Mental Hospital. There she spent 2 years, not a little time, as she had promised in the court, undergoing treatment. 2 years. Not much is known of her final years, except that she spent most of it in seclusion, married to a postman in Connecticut in a home with 2 dogs and 10 cats. She died in December of 1971 of pulmonary disease, likely the result of long-term alcohol abuse, at the age of 58. Dorothy Comminger, born August 24th, 1913 in Los Angeles, California, died December 30th, 1971 in Stonington, Connecticut. Margaret Louise